Hello and welcome to Podcraft. It's Matthew with you here. Still slightly hoarse after a particularly nasty bug last week. The whole family and I were laid low with, it was like flu or COVID or something, but whatever it was deeply unpleasant. And the old voice is just starting to come back now. So on this episode, as you might hear, I am out a walk, and that was exactly what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about what I'm going to call walkcasting. Don't know if anyone else is using that term. It's not exactly very innovative, so probably. But this has popped up a few times recently on Podcraft, hasn't it? Like people who are recording their podcasts whilst going out on a nice walk. And if you follow the podcasting news at all, you'll no doubt have seen that story. About a month ago, it was a company they're basically creating thousands upon thousands of fully AI generated podcasts. You know, it's scripted, the voices are all synthetic, and the company, you know, they're not even actually listening to these episodes, such as their scale, before they're putting them out there. And podcasters, you know, especially new podcasters, are starting to think that if there's such a high volume of these podcasts now and they take almost no effort to create, then how am I going to bring my own show to the table? And how am I going to get it discovered? How am I going to be found? Is it not just going to be completely drowned out in all the noise here? So, you know, the conversations this year, a lot of the conversations in indie podcasting have been about ways to stand out from AI, because we can't compete with it in a lot of ways, especially from a scale point of view. So, you know, what other things can we do to make sure that, you know, we're still bringing something that AI really can't replicate? And a few of the conversations we've had recently on Podcraft have touched on this concept of recording as you go for a walk. And on this episode, I just kind of wanted to get into some reasons why you might want to try, you know, if you're able to go outside and just record your next episode whilst taking a nice walk, exactly like I am now. So we've got 6 different reasons that you might want to consider doing a walkcast. You know, it doesn't have to be every episode that you do, but you might want to just at least experiment with it and see how you get on. So number 1 is that it builds authentic connections. So this feels much more like a real conversation, if you like, than a broadcast. You know, I'm not just sitting there in a studio talking to you. It's more like I'm out on a walk with you. And, you know, we've got all the background ambience. You can hear, I'm breathing. I'm I wouldn't say labouring, but, you know, I'm coming off the back of an illness, you know. So there's maybe a more natural cadence to my delivery here. You've got the footsteps, you've got traffic noises in the background, birds singing. So there's a lot of imperfections here, but they're you know, almost always charming ones. This is a real moment. You're sharing a real moment with a real person, and a lot of podcast listeners, they can find that comfort, and especially if you are yourself out a walk at this very moment in time, or maybe for one reason or another you're not able to get out on walks. You know, we spoke to Neale recently on an episode of Podcraft, and he was talking about that, you know, that very piece of feedback that he got, where a listener said that because of illness they were unable to get out on walks themselves, and it was great to kind of experience that through listening to him going out on his own walks. So yeah, that's number 1. You know, building authentic connections with your listeners is a big part of this podcasting approach. Number 2 is actually the benefits you'll find in more natural, spontaneous thinking. So, you know, I bet you've had more than a few times where you've been out on a walk, not necessarily recording a podcast, but you've just been out on a walk one day, and maybe something you've been mulling over, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's a creative project, maybe something's just clicked into place. You've had that light bulb moment, and you know, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not going to get into or try and speculate on what's going on under the hood there, but we all know that just getting out and doing something, having a wee walk, it's amazing how there's something going on in your brain that it just manages to sort things out, manages to click something into place here or there. So if we could capture that whilst we're recording our episodes, that's a really good opportunity. And again, you know, how many times have you, and I've done this myself, you sit down at home or in the studio to record, and you're just sitting at your computer, and if you're doing a solo episode, it's sometimes it's quite hard to get going. It just doesn't feel right, doesn't feel natural. That's because it's not. Whereas this, it was no trouble at all. We just get started talking, and it's just like I say, it's spontaneous basically. And again, coming back to point one on authenticity, it gives listeners a sense of you thinking aloud rather than just reading from a script. So, these things all tie into one another as well. So yeah, that more natural, spontaneous thinking is definitely a big part of why you might benefit from doing a walkcast. So number 3 is it's very low friction and low pressure. So there was really little setup or preparation that I've done for this. I'm literally just grabbing my phone, and the lav mic plugs into it. I'll talk about gear in a minute, but very little preparation here. I'm just literally going out on a walk. So no studio, no expensive gear, and it's that freedom to record when the inspiration strikes, or just when it's convenient as well. If you have an office job and you have an hour for your lunch each day, even if you work in like a city or that, just grabbing your phone, you've got half an hour for your lunch, and you could have another half hour just to have a nice walk and record something. And it's just very easy to kind of fit into your schedule as well. So there's a real simplicity here that just means you've got the potential to record and publish more often. You're more likely to keep going, and that ultimately, that's a big part of podcasting, is just keeping on going. It's not always easy, but with something like this, we do make it, I would say, a lot easier. So the 4th reason to try Walkcasting is it's cost-effective production. So, you could literally just use your phone. Harking back to Neale's episode, that's exactly what he was doing, just recording straight into his phone, not even any external microphones. Like I say, I am using one at the moment, but that's very much an optional extra. And these smartphones, they sound very good now. So even just taking your phone and nothing else, just the voice memo app on your phone, that's more than enough. So it makes this type of podcast very cost effective, especially when you see some of the setups that folks have in their house. And there's definitely a place for all these setups and some of the great gear that you could get these days, but you absolutely don't need it. And especially if you're doing a show like this, it could really keep the costs down. And this makes it really easy as well for new people or newer people to try podcasting. They don't feel so much like, I need to have this bit of gear in place, I need to get this set up, I need to do this treatment to my room and all that. It is literally, I've already got a phone, I've got an idea. Let me just go out a walk, let me fire up my voice memos app and just see what comes out, and we can kind of build from there. So the on-ramp is very, very low as well, especially if you're just starting out. I think this is a brilliant way to record that first episode, and who knows, that might even be the way that you end up recording most, if not all, of your episodes going forward as well. And because you could do your recording anywhere, it's super easy to capture ideas as they happen rather than waiting on that perfect setup. So again, like if you're going about your business at work, and that lunchtime's coming up and you've just had this idea, you're really excited about it, you could just go out there and record it, or on your walk home or whatever. So you're able to get in front of the mic during periods where you really feel inspired to do so. It's not like you've got to wait till I get home tonight and have my dinner and all that, and by the time it actually comes round to you sitting in front of the computer, you feel you've lost a bit of that spark. So again, there's a flexibility here as well, not to mention, like I say, the cost effectiveness of it all. The 5th reason to try Walkcasting next time you record your podcast is that it could really set you apart from the other shows in your niche or topic, because it sounds so distinctive, it sounds so human and authentic. So I'm not just referring to like AI podcasts, but other podcasts out there in your niche, no doubt. The hosts are doing really good stuff, maybe creating some fantastic audio, but if they're behind the computer screen, if they're in the studio or at home, you have an advantage to just really do something different with your sound when you're getting outside, and the episodes could be much more memorable, again for a lot of the reasons that we've already covered here. So you could just make that sound, your kind of signature sound in your space, as part of your branding, that you record like this, and it's just something different for the listeners, and you're much more likely to kind of be it sounds a bit like you've died, remembered for it, but you know what I mean, just fresh in the listener's mind. Each time one of your episodes drop, they think, oh, it's the person that goes out on the walk, I really like these. And again, it's something else that sets you apart from what else is out there, especially shows that are covering the same or similar topics as you do. Okay, the very last reason to try Walkcasting then is it encourages mindfulness and healthy habits. So I'm out a walk right now. I've just been very sick last week, and I don't think anyone would try and argue that this is good for you. I'm out here in the fresh air. Fortunate enough today to have a bit of winter sun, and it's just nice to be outdoors, nice to be getting a walk, and I'm starting to feel good for having done so. Not only that, but I am actually getting the podcast recorded as well, so it's just such a double benefit there. So I'm taking what would have been screen time, sitting at the computer or standing at the computer, and I've turned it into a good opportunity to get outside and move, get some sunlight and some exercise. And I feel better for it, not just physically but mentally as well. I don't think anyone would try and argue with you that getting out on a walk, it improves your mood, it makes you feel brighter and happier, and that hopefully bleeds into your recording as well when you're getting out there and having a chat in those kind of circumstances. And I think there's a kind of rhythmic nature to the conversation when you're out walking as well. You maybe have slight moments of pauses that if I was just in the studio might be considered dead air, but you do find that when you're listening to someone who's out recording on a walk, there's the odd moment where there is just a natural pause in the conversation. Maybe they'll walk for a few seconds without saying anything, and it doesn't feel weird. It's just that slower approach, that different cadence. And I think when you record when you're out a walk as well, it kind of encourages this sort of calmer, more mindful approach to creating content. Alright, brief edit point here and a real world case study, because when I was out walking earlier, I was coughing quite a lot and I had to stop the recording a couple of times just to kind of clear my chest and catch my breath. And what seems to have happened when I switched the recorder back on there, when I switched the app back on, it seems to, for some reason or another, it's reverted to the built-in mics on the phone from here on in. So like I say, that's a useful real world case study, because I'm just about to go on to talk about equipment and that. So from now on, like I say, you're going to hear a very old bashed up iPhone's default audio, so it still sounds more than good enough. I would guess the difference is you could hear that this isn't handling the wind quite as well. It's not distorted or anything, but it's definitely more noticeable that there's a bit of wind around. I think this part of the recording, to be honest, I was in quite a exposed area, whereas I was in amongst the trees for much of it, but it just shows that there's nuances here. And also, again, I keep referencing Neale's episode, but he talked about the fact that he's got a dead cat windshield for his phone. So if you're recording straight into your phone, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying you might still want to stick a furry windjammer or something on it. But anyway, back to the recording. That was just to let you know that we've changed microphones. And if we think about the ways in which most people consume media these days, it's very fast-paced. Again, shorts and algorithms and news feeds, swiping through apps. It's all fast, bang, bang, bang. It's just, again, I'm not going to get into my thoughts and opinions on all that, but I just see this as completely the opposite. This is calm, this is long form, this is deep, relaxed, and it's just everything that most digital media just now is not. So I just wanted to touch on equipment. So like I say, you don't need any other equipment other than your smartphone. That'll be more than good enough. But if you do want to add anything extra, I'm using the Rode Wireless Micro lavalier kit. So that at the moment, I just had a wee look before I left the house on Amazon.com. You could buy them for $90, just over $90. And time of recording, we're coming up to the Black Friday stuff as well. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a bit more of a discount there. But $90 for this kit is a really good price. Even so, if that's a bit much of a stretch, you could get the Boya Minis for $40. And again, they do pretty much the same job. And they're a great wee bit of kit as well. So you've got the two microphones in both of those kits, and that means that, if you were able to have co-hosted conversations on your walk or interviews, then you'd have the option to add in that second microphone as well. I'm recording into the Rode Recorder app. It's a free app. I think when Neale was on, he was talking about he'd bought one for like $5. That was his lifetime licence for £5 or $5, whatever it was. But the voice memo app or voice notes or whatever it is called in your phone, that'll be more than good enough again to get started. So don't get caught up in these small details. Just get out there and record something and use as little as you possibly can, and then you can always add to it if and when you want to. So there you have it. That's 6 reasons to give Walkcasting a shot in your podcast. And I've really enjoyed talking through them with you out in this nice walk. I did have to, I don't know if it was evident, but I did have to kind of stop and start the recording from time to time because I'm still getting the odd coughing fit coming off the back of this nasty virus. So still coughing my guts up from time to time, but that would have been just the same if I was in the studio or whatever. So that's about it for this episode of Podcraft. Just a quick shout out for our academy. Just before I came out on this walk, I was checking in on the academy. So it's Monday time of recording, and that's when the academy members are posting their accountability goals for the coming week. So people are setting out the goals that they want to achieve between now and Friday or Sunday, I suppose. And accountability is a massive benefit for podcasters, because getting started, there are some hard obstacles to overcome. There's no getting around that, but it's the keeping on going that is the really challenging thing in podcasting. That's what separates a successful podcaster, not just somebody who launched and put a few episodes out, but people who manage to keep going for the long haul. So that's why we have these tools and spaces inside the academy. It's just to get that encouragement and motivation and, like I say, accountability to make sure that you're keeping on going. Not always going to feel like it, and there's going to be sometimes things that get in the way, but as long as we could always make sure we're getting back on the horse and working on what's next and having people around you that are in the same boat, I think that's a big benefit there. So that's a part of the academy, really, is not just getting started. That's what we do and what we teach, but to keep you going as well. So if you're interested in the Podcraft Academy, please head over to pod.academy, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well, and you can check it out. All right then, thanks for joining me on this episode of Podcraft. Thanks for joining me on this walk. I hope the voice just about held up and I was clear, or at least as clear as I'll ever be. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch up again on the next one.